Hi! Now that we are done with the installation process, now we're going to create our first project in Android Studio and actually create our first app as well. So open your Android Studio and all you have to do is just start a new Android Studio project, and from now on it will be the same for Windows and Mac and Linux and everything as well. So I'm going to continue with my MacBook over here. Okay, just make sure just click your Android Studio and open this little pane over here and hit start a new Android Studio project. There are a couple of settings that we want to change about Android Studio, but we're going to do that afterwards we create our first project. So when you start a new project, it will ask you some kind of theme. So as you can see, there are some options over here like basic activity, empty activity, like Google Maps activity. So activity means a screen that user interacts. Okay, so we're going to create activities, and this is asking for some kind of theme. If we want some kind of theme like maps or basic like buttons or login or some kind of menu activity, and in fact at the beginning we don't need any of this, right? We only need an empty activity to learn about Android development. So I'm going to choose empty activity and continue, and over here you will see some kind of configurations for your project. And if we had chosen another activity from here, we will just get the same. Just make sure you choose the empty activity. Over here, this is our project name, so you can call it whatever you want, like my project or my activity or my app. So I'm going to just call this our application because it isn't specific to our activity. Actually, an app can contain more than one screen, as you might imagine. So we're going to add much more screens later on in this course, but right now we're creating our first app, so I'm going to name this my first application, and we're starting with an empty activity. Over here we see something called package name, like com.example.myfirstapplication, and package name is the unique name, unique identification of our application. So this has to be there because the platforms like Google Play identifies applications with this unique package name. So this is kind of important. And make sure you change this example as well. So for example, rather than example, you can write your own name like atilsam. com.atilsam.myfirstapplication would be a very good package name for this application. So every application has its own package name and they're unique. So over here you see the save location of this project. It really doesn't matter where you save it unless you have some spaces or some kind of funny characters in your location. Again, like in the SDK, make sure you don't have any spaces, anything like some funny characters over here, non-Latin characters. It would break your connection. In the language part, we have either Java or Kotlin. We're gonna go with Java. So we have two options right now for native Android development, Java or Kotlin. It doesn't really matter for Android development, but we're going to start with Java. So in the minimum API level, we define the minimum level of telephone support for our app. Like we have a lot of APIs, a lot of versions of Android actually, and every year maybe you track that Android releases a new version like Oreo or Pi or Q. So we see those applications, we see those versions over here, and we choose the minimum level that we want to reach. So the less we choose from here, like API 22, API 23, the broader range that we actually reach, like as you can see in the 23, 62% of the devices are compatible with our app. So we want to go for something like 1917 maybe. We don't want to go less, like we don't want to choose API 1 because this time we won't be taking advantage of the newer technologies that Android brought us so many years back. You don't want to choose API 27, 28, 29 because then you will just reach 1% of the current devices, so it won't make sense to you. It won't make sense to just develop this app and put it on the Play Store because very few people can download it anyway. So generally developers try to find an optimized way like API 19, 20 currently in order to define the minimum application API level. So it really doesn't matter for us because we're doing this just for tests, so choose API 27. So Android X artifacts is a way to organize the Android files inside of the Android application. So make sure Android X is checked. If it's uncheckable for you, it's better just make sure this is checked. Okay, so this will bring you the opportunity to use the latest dependencies, latest libraries in your app as well, because if you don't use it, your app won't be compatible with the latest technology. So that's it. That's all the settings that we want to do before we create our first app. So make sure you do the same thing, you follow the same settings and then hit finish. Once you hit finish, it will install if there's any SDKs or any plugins that is missing, and you can just hit finish one more time to create your application project. So you will see a screen like this once you hit finish, and this is the screen of Android Studio. Here you go. And it will take some time because it will download some kind of Gradle files, some necessary files to make your project work for the first time that you are running this, and it can take something like 1 or 2 minutes for you. And make sure everything is fine over here under the log section, under the bottom of this project. And if it gives you an error, for example in the Windows machine, then your antivirus solutions may be blocking it, blocking the download. So maybe you can turn off your antivirus solutions for right now, just to let this happen, let this download thing. And if it asks for a permission like this, of course please feel free to allow this so that it will work fine. On the right hand side we generally see this news or assistant. You can just close it down. We don't need this. I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to explain every detail that you need in order to develop Android applications so that you won't need any assistance. Over here we see the Android Studio menu. So let me put this way so that you can see it better. In Windows you can see it on the top side of this Android Studio application as well. On the bottom side we generally see this building thing and logs of the application. Once build is completed successfully, you see these green things happening. If you get an error over here, don't worry, I'm going to explain how to overcome errors as well in this lecture. Once you open the Android Studio, you will see these 3 main parts. On the bottom side, as I explained, there is a build section. Okay, on the right hand side you see the coding or design section, and on the left hand side you see the files and folders of your project. Once you create a project, actually there are files and folders created for you in the location that you have specified, so that you can actually go and see the files and folders on your computer for yourselves as well. So on the left hand side we see those files and folders. We can edit them. So it's the same thing with opening them with a text editor and writing inside of them, but of course you will break something if you do that. So that's why we use Android Studio over here in order to generate some kind of quality code for our application. So on the left hand side under Gradle scripts you will see something called build.gradle, and that's where you need to edit if you get any errors at this point. Sometimes this happens, so if you don't have any errors, if you see build succeeded